All right, let's just jump right into this explainer. We've literally all been there, right? You're out on the water, you feel that massive, unmistakable strike. You set the hook, your rod bends in half, the drag starts absolutely screaming, and you brace yourself for the fight of your life. And then, nothing. Just a sickening loss of tension and the limp line flying back at your face. It is the ultimate heartbreak for any angler, losing a trophy fish to tackle failure. Well, today, we aren't just going to sit around and commiserate. We are putting on our lab coats. We're taking a forensic approach to find out exactly why fishing lines really break, stripping away all the marina myths, and looking purely at the cold, hard physics and material science of your tackle. Nothing's worse than feeling that hard hit, starting the fight of your life, and then snap, you're left with a broken line and a lost fish. Okay, let's dive into this. That quote perfectly captures that sinking, sickening pop in your chest. It's an emotional pain that every single one of us knows intimately. But rather than just blaming bad luck or karma or claiming you somehow got a bad batch of line, we need to look at the mechanical reality of what actually just happened at the end of your rod. So what does this all mean? Why did the line actually break? Consider this explainer a literal forensic investigation. We are looking for the exact cause of death of our snapped line. Was it the line itself? The knot? The metal hardware? The truth is, the structural integrity of your entire setup is fundamentally defined by its weakest link. Whenever you move from a straight line to a complex, knotted structure, you're introducing massive mechanical vulnerabilities.
To find our culprit, here's the comprehensive journey we are taking today. We'll start with the heartbreak of the snap, then dig into the physics of the weakest link and expose heat as our invisible enemy. After that, we'll contrast braid versus fluorocarbon, analyze the actual metallurgy of your terminal tackle, and finally wrap up by building the ultimate bulletproof setup.
Section 1, the heartbreak of the snap, debunking the 100% knot myth.
First things first, we gotta dismantle a very pervasive myth in the angling community, the legend of the 100% strong knot. Look, the hard truth is, simple physics dictates that anytime you contort a line, creating hard turns under extreme tension, you are fundamentally compromising the strength of that material. Just look at this number, 50%. A simple, dry, overhand knot tied into your line reduces its overall breaking strength by roughly half. If you're fishing a 20-pound line and you've got a poorly tied knot, you are actually fishing with 10-pound test. It's a massive shock, I know, but it proves that a knot is essentially a controlled self-destruction of your line if you don't understand the forces at play.
Which brings us to Section 2, Physics of the Weakest Link. Knots under extreme stress.
Let's look at how knots actually hold together and why they ultimately fail. When you tie a knot, you're forcing a straight line into a really complex, high-stress structure. There are two critical engineering concepts here. First up is the nip. Basically, this is the specific point where the line crosses over itself, creating the friction needed to hold the knot. But here's the catch. That friction requires extreme lateral compression. The line is physically crushing itself right at the nip. Second is the 4-to-1 rule. This states that if you bend the line around an object smaller than 4 times its own diameter, you lose serious strength. In knots, those bends are microscopic. This forces the outermost fibers to stretch to their absolute limit, while the inner ones compress. Those outer fibers snap first, rapidly dumping all that load onto the remaining fibers, which then just catastrophically fail.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the specific mechanical failure modes for each knot. Notice the figure 8 at the top. It retains a very respectable 75 to 80% efficiency, but when it fails, it's due to that curvature-induced fiber rupture we just talked about. Now look way down at the bottom. The reef rod. It retains only 25 to 30% of its strength. Its primary failure mode is spilling, meaning under tension, the knot simply capsizes and pulls itself apart. It's a definitive guide proving that your choice of knot directly dictates how much force your system can actually survive.
Section 3, heat, the invisible enemy. Thermodynamics in angling.
Structural geometry isn't the only killer out there. Picture this. A giant trevally makes a blistering 50-yard run. Or maybe you're just aggressively cinching down a knot. Thermodynamics and friction instantly become your absolute worst enemies. The security of any knot relies on the capstan effect, meaning holding power goes up exponentially with more wraps. But wraps generate insane friction. When you cinch a knot completely dry, you generate so much localized heat that it can actually exceed the material's melting point. We call this thermal glazing. The polymer chains get all scrambled into a brittle, weak state. In stiff lines, this thermal shock causes microscopic crush breaks. This is exactly why a tightly pulled, dry knot will snap at a fraction of its rated load. Always, always, always lubricate your knots with water or saliva to absorb that heat.
Moving to Section 4, braid versus fluorocarbon, material science out on the water. We have to look at the materials we're actually tying. How do different lines react to this crushing friction? Well, braided lines are made of UHMWP, ultra-high molecular weight polyethylene. It sounds nerdy, but it means it has incredible heat tolerance, keeping over 90% of its strength even at 200 degrees Fahrenheit. The downside is incredibly slick. That ultra-low friction means it demands significantly more wraps to build a friction ramp so it doesn't just slide undone. On the flip side, monofilament basically turns into a rubber band under heat, losing 25% of its strength at just 150 degrees. Fluorocarbon handles heat a bit better, but because it's so incredibly stiff, if you tie it dry, it doesn't compress gracefully at all. It literally shatters internally.
Section 5, Metallurgy of Terminal Tackle, Hardware Fatigue, and Stainless Steel.
So let's pivot down the chain to the final structural link, your metallic hardware. You can tie a flawless knot in premium braid, but if you connect it to garbage metal, you're setting yourself up for heartbreak. Look at this comparison between standard 304 stainless steel and marine-grade 316. 304 is fine for a freshwater lake, but in chloride-rich saltwater, it suffers from microscopic pitting. These tiny rust pits act like miniature files rubbing right against your line. So the crucial point is the addition of 2 to 3% molybdenum found in 316 stainless. That molybdenum completely stabilizes the metal against salt and prevents those microscopic pits. If you want true reliability in the ocean, 316 is absolutely non-negotiable.
Because, guys, when cheap metal fails, it fails spectacularly. Repeatedly fighting fish causes gate fatigue, where cheap spring steel develops microcracks and just bends open. Then you have the terrifying sawing effect. If a budget snap has unpolished wire tips, your slick braid will slide under a heavy hit, and that sharp tip will slice through it like a hot knife through butter. Plus, high-pressure spinning locks up standard barrel swivels completely, sending massive line twists straight down into your knot. The fix? Premium 316 stainless steel ball bearing swivels. They actively release that line-destroying torque, even under maximum drag.
Finally, Section 6, Building the Ultimate Setup, the Blueprint for Success.
We've covered the physics of the nip, thermal glazing, and metallurgy. Let's move to and see how this builds into a highly actionable blueprint to bulletproof your setup. Step 1. Tie an FG knot for braid to leader connections. It works like a Chinese finger trap, spreading out the friction and drastically reducing that bend-induced strength loss. Step 2. Lubricate heavily. Never ever cinch a knot dry. Step 3. Upgrade your hardware. Get 316 stainless ball bearing swivels and premium polished snaps. And Step 4. Replace your terminal tackle frequently. Even the highest grade metal in the world has a fatigue limit.
I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. We spend so much time obsessing over knot strength, but strength truly isn't everything. If your hardware is pitted, if your drag washers are sticky, or if your system is completely unbalanced, a perfect 100% knot absolutely cannot save you. So ask yourself, are you relying on a good knot to mask a badly maintained rod and reel? Take a forensic look at your own gear before your next trip. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I seriously hope this science helps you land the catch of a lifetime.